Hello, my friends. Wes Gow here with Cardinal Coaching Solutions podcast. So glad that you're checking in and so glad to be back. Man, before I fired up the microphone here, I was just looking back on past episodes and realized, man, the last time that I published a podcast was, I think, November. I think is what I saw, end of November 2021. And wow, man, I said at the time that I'm in the spirit of winter and letting go, that I was going to take a break. And I didn't anticipate it stretching as long as it did. Here we are in May. But it's been good. It's been really good to just step away from a lot of the content creation side of things. And yet at the same time, I've missed it. And so this feels like good energy to be popping back in here, and I hope that you're well. It's spring here in the Mid-Atlantic, and we got some beautiful sunshine on hand here today. So wherever you are, wherever you're listening in, hope things are well. You know, in addition to the spirit of letting go, although here we are in spring where things are blooming and becoming. So one of the things that is blooming and becoming for me is I started a graduate program last October. And it just felt right. It was one of those things where I talked to some different people about it, and just about any time I mentioned it, I often got this response of like, "Whoa, man, you're crazy," and yet that kind of clued me into, no, I think I'm moving in the right direction here. It's not for everyone. But for me, it's a move that just felt right. And really, with every course that I've taken, I'm wrapping up my third this week, and I start my fourth next week before I get a little bit of a break. But just with every course, it kind of confirms more and more, like, yep, this was the right move for now at this time. And so I've enjoyed it. So that's blooming, that's becoming. I don't know where it will lead. I don't know exactly what the long game is there, but I don't know that we ever get that. And so for me, I just knew that I just had this gut feeling like, yep, that feels right. That feels aligned, which is something I want to talk about here. But in the spirit of letting go, just to kind of wrap that up, one of the things, in addition to podcasting, one of the things that I also did was kind of curate a monthly newsletter. And that involved not only the podcast, but also some written content as well as video. So I would, as I was recording the podcast, I would also capture it on video. And I really enjoyed that. And yet I also felt a need to let that go. And so what I am going to continue to commit to is the podcasting, but I will be closing down the newsletter for a time. So in the vein of alignment, of course, on this podcast here, this is my platform to just share what is going on, what is really resonating with me. And there are these two definitions of discipline, and then I'm going to connect this to alignment. So the first one, and these are, I can't remember where I heard these just over the years. The first one says this: discipline is remembering what you want. Yeah. Discipline is remembering what you want. And then the second one is some variation, some collection of words that says this: discipline is a long obedience in the same direction. I really like that. I really like both of those. Discipline is a long obedience in the same direction. And that's kind of what this graduate program felt like for me, feels like for me. It's a long obedience in the same direction. I'm not totally sure what the end is, and yet it feels like it belongs. So on that note of remembering what you want and a long obedience in the same direction, one of the practices that I've put in place is I try to do this at least once a day. I have this nature app on my phone. It's just different nature sounds you can play, and you can set a timer to. So when I go to pick up the kids from school, I usually get there early, got to wait in line. And so I'll just park, shut off the truck, put on this nature app, and I'll set the timer for like 10 to 15 minutes. And I'll close my eyes and I'll sit there. And it's really challenging because, if you're like me, man, any dead time, we just have this terrible habit of picking up our phones and we just want to either scroll or, maybe knock out some work, make some phone calls. But I've taken this 10 to 15 minutes and I close my eyes. I force myself to keep my eyes closed and I drop into this space of just allowing my mind and my heart and my soul to yearn, to name, to long for what I want. And not just in a, really not at all in a consumer mindset, what I want. It's what my heart yearns for. I long to have strong relationships with my daughters as they grow. I long for them to meet the right kinds of friends, the right partners. I long to have a stronger marriage. I envision, and I'll just get personal here, I envision at some point living on property that has water of some kind on it. A stream, a pond, a lake, I don't know what. And I also, my heart yearns for somewhere on this property, there's a creative studio. And that's where I do what I do. And so I just allow myself to long for that. Now, at the same time that I'm doing that, I've brought that practice into my life. I had a conversation with this wonderful colleague of mine. I'm sure you'll recognize her name, Liz Garrett. She is a brilliant coach, just one of the most creative, uniquely energetic people I've ever known. She's the one who hosted the Self-Care Summit last year, and I'll make sure I include a link to where you can find more about her. But Liz Garrett. And I was talking about this practice, and she just started nodding like, yep, that's how it works. That's what it is. And I'm like, well, tell me more about that. And she said, well, it's all about alignment. It's aligning your vibration. And I'm going to butcher this. So if Liz listens to this, I apologize. But this was my takeaway. Aligning your vibration to what is longing for you on the other end. Now, the way I imagine that later, so after we had that conversation, I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. And have you ever been in a place, maybe you're walking through a mall or somewhere, or even the grocery store, anywhere that plays music, and you can faintly hear, maybe over the chatter, you can faintly hear this melody that you recognize that. Wait, what was that? Was that? And you yourself get quiet. You stop pushing the grocery cart, or you tell whoever you're talking to, hang on, ho. You're trying to catch that melody. What was it that I heard? I know that song. That's what I imagine this aligning of energies is. I'm listening hard for what I know I'm longing for. Now, I'm going to bring all of that into a really practical example. So, as we're coming up to summertime here, we're nearing summertime. My wife and I both work, and so we will typically hire a nanny for the summer. And it's what's working for us now. I don't know that it will always be that way, but it's what's working for us now. And, it's a process. If you've ever done it, it comes with a lot of unknowns, and it's not easy, or it hasn't been easy for us. And yet it's always worked out. So as we have kind of posted this job on various, nanny type sites and childcare type sites, I find myself once again, like, I know as much as I am on this end longing for the right person to come into our lives for this season, for this moment, to interact and be a part of our family. as much as I'm longing for that, I know that there is someone on the other end of this who is equally longing to meet the right family for this summer. They are looking for us as much as we're looking for them. So early on in the process, we just were not making headway. We were not, it just didn't feel like we were making headway. But once I realigned myself to this process and this belief and this practice, so this was one of the things that would come to my mind as I'm sitting in my truck, listening to the sound of crickets chirping and allowing myself to long for. Slowly, sure enough, a couple days go by, maybe a week, and here we are. At this point in the process, we've got at least two really strong candidates that we're going to interview this week that we're really excited about. And it feels like a huge weight lifted off our shoulders. Now, the process isn't over. This is where we're at now today. I just wanted to pass that along. I hope that's helpful for you. What is it that you want? Are you allowing time and space in your life for your soul, your heart, your spirit to yearn? And are you filtering your decisions through that lens? Going back to those definitions, discipline is it's remembering what you want, and it's a long obedience in the same direction. So wishing you well, my friends, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and we will do this again soon.